Of course, gentlemen, before we had our final commercial break, we promised that we'd give you an opportunity to talk about the book itself. I think that the two of you have given us an excellent overview in terms of what the book is all about. But the book is also, I understand, supposed to be marketed, or at least supposed to come out on the 6th of March.
That's correct.
And what we'd like for you to do now is to give us some information relative to the publication date and some of the things that are generally associated with the publication date and whatever during this last 6 minutes that we have.
Yes. As you pointed out, the publication date is March 6, 2000, and it's 2002. I'm sorry, 2002, and it's published by University Press of Florida, and it'll be out in the spring, and we will have some autographing sessions here in the city. Tennessee State will have one, and of course Keebler Image Bookstore and some of the local bookstores as well as churches and mosques, because we are trying to really generate and stimulate an interfaith dialogue, and that's one of the central themes in the book. Even though we are using Dr. King and El-Shabazz as characters, the broader context is that interfaith dialogue, and the broader context also is that international approach thing. So I'd like for maybe Dr. Baldwin to take us through maybe the introduction and some of the themes that run through the book.
Good. Okay, in the introduction, we basically set forth the thesis, and that is that Martin and Malcolm can be sources of dialogue for Christians and Muslims in their efforts to break down barriers that separate them, and also in their efforts to come up with solutions and responses, of course, to the range of problems that we continue to face in the community in terms of racism and classism and other problems. We want to try and reach as broad a readership as we possibly can, not merely people in the academic community or the academy. We want to try to reach Muslims and Christians even at the grassroots level. As you may or may not know, a lot has happened in this city over the years in terms of interfaith dialogue. Our reason for wanting to go to mosques and churches, of course, is to reach out to people in the communities so they will understand what we've written rather, and they will be influenced by it in terms of the way they view each other, Christians and Muslims, in terms of the way they relate to each other, and perhaps they might be compelled to come up with some solutions or to work toward common goals in a unified fashion in addressing the problems that we face in the community. So that's our main concern, is to reach this broad readership. Now, in the introduction, we've set forth a thesis, and I mentioned that earlier. Chapter 1 treats Malcolm and Martin in relationship to culture. They are looked upon as cultural figures, cultural heroes in that first chapter. In chapter 2 was written by Dr. AAl-Hadid, and it deals with Malcolm X and Sunni Islam, Al-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz and Sunni Islam. And it takes us through Malcolm's personal spiritual pilgrimage, which began, as you well know, in the Nation of Islam and ended with his acceptance and affirmation of Sunni Islam. Chapter 3 is a chapter that I have written on Martin, Malcolm, and religion. And we talk about the spiritual pilgrimages of both men, from childhood up to the times of their deaths. And the focus, of course, in that chapter is on much of the theology that they embraced, their ideas about each other's faith, Malcolm's ideas about Christianity, Martin's ideas about Islam. And we ended that third chapter with some focus on the relevance and implications of their ideas for interfaith dialogue today. As you well know, this country is the most religiously diverse country in the world, according to recent scholarship. And we think that it's important for people who are engaged in interfaith dialogue to study the lives of these two men. Chapter 4 is another chapter that was written by Dr. AAl-Hadid. Dr. AAl-Hadid in that chapter deals with Malcolm on manhood and family. Their ideas, Malcolm, Martin, manhood and family, what they thought about manhood, their ideas about the importance of the family in the creation of culture and community. Chapter 5 looks at their attitude toward women, their attitudes toward women, I should say. their wives, their daughters, the way they related to women in the movement, in the freedom movement. Chapter 6, of course, is on Malcolm Martin and young people, how they related to young people, their children, young people in the struggle, Black Power advocates, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And Chapter 7 was written by Dr. AAl-Hadid, and it treats Martin and Malcolm in relationship to what he calls the great debate that has occurred historically, going back to people like William Whipper and Frederick Douglass and Henry Highland Garnett, up through Du Bois, Washington, on up to Martin, Malcolm debates. Chapter 8, of course, looks at how Martin and Malcolm viewed each other as persons and as leaders, their relationships, etc. And the final chapter, of course, deals with their views on world community. So we began the book with a focus on their developments within their particular black communities, and we end, of course, with their world visions.
You know, one of the things that occurred to me was that both these individuals were assassinated. And we only have a minute, and we don't even have time to even raise such a question. But the next time the two of you come by after the publication of this great work, we want you to deal with the assassination of both men and to talk about it from that perspective. But I'm sure that the information that you've given us now has prepared us adequately for the forthcoming edition of this great work. And of course, we look forward to it, and we'll have you back to talk about it once it's out. And of course, let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you, and good morning.